New videos out on JJ9 News, where we talk all things NFL all the time. The latest video involves Isaiah Rodgers getting suspended 1 year for gambling and defending himself by saying that it wasn't him who made those bets. Make sure to check the link in the description to check out that channel now. And now, on with our featured presentation. The Pro Bowl is supposed to be a celebratory occasion. It is a momentous event in the life of an NFL player. And even if the game has lost a ton of value nowadays compared to what it was, it is still a status symbol for these players. To make it to the Pro Bowl means that you've been recognized as one of the top players in the league. Your peers respect you, the fans respect you, the coaches respect you, and players respect you. It's a sign that you've officially made it. You get bonuses, you hit certain incentives in your contract, you get a huge status boost for future contracts, and whether it's right or not, it could play a huge part in whether or not you make it to the Pro Football Hall of Fame and cement yourself forever as one of the all-time greats. Everyone is in a good mood at this game, and even though there is a game to be played, it's more of a celebration than anything else, and a reward for a long and hard season. So I ask you this, how dumb do you have to be to ruin all of that and get arrested at the Pro Bowl? Seriously. How freaking dumb do you have to be en route to the Pro Bowl and find yourself, instead of having an appointment on the field for practice, having an appointment with the feds? Well, this man right here that you've been watching this whole time is St. Louis Cardinals running back Terry Metcalf. And after a strong 1975 season that gave him the honors of being one of the best running backs in the NFC, and in all of football for that matter, he earned the right to play in the Pro Bowl, only for him to almost destroy it by getting arrested for the dumbest reason possible. And I don't mean getting arrested for a dumb reason as in the police had it out for him. I mean getting arrested for failure to keep your mouth shut and saying something that no one should ever say. Because this is the story behind Terry Metcalf, and what has to be, considering the circumstances, the dumbest player in Pro Bowl history. Before I talk about the arrest and what exactly this player did in order to get arrested while traveling to the Pro Bowl, because it truly defies all logic as to why he thought this was a good idea, we need some context to understand who this player was, and why he got an invite to the Pro Bowl in the first place. The year is 1975, and the St. Louis Cardinals just posted one of their best seasons in franchise history. For the second straight year under the guidance of future Hall of Fame head coach Don Coryell, they made it to the playoffs as NFC East champions, and this time, did it while posting an 11-3 record. Although the Cards were to lose in the divisional round to the Los Angeles Rams by a final score of 35-23, it was a great season nonetheless, as the 11 regular season wins tied the franchise record for most wins in a season, tying their 1948 total when they went 11-1 and lost in the NFL Championship, and their 1925 total when they were named NFL champions with an 11-2-1 record. The Cardinals were so good in 1975 that only 3 teams in football actually had a better record than they did, and they ended the season as one of the hottest teams in football, as after a 2-2 start, they closed the season winning 9 of their final 10 games entering the postseason. Now, there were many reasons why the Cards were such a great football team during that 1975 campaign. You had a secondary of ball hogs, from the likes of Norm Thompson, who had 7 interceptions, which was the 3rd most in the NFC, and Roger Worley, who was an AP first-team All-Pro and a Pro Bowler. You had a great passing game led by Pro Bowl quarterback Jim Hart, who had the 4th most passing yards in football and the 5th most passing touchdowns in football, and led by Mel Gray at wide receiver, who may have been the best wideout in football, finishing with 926 receiving yards, which led the NFC and was 3rd in the NFL, and 11 receiving touchdowns, which tied Lynn Swann of the Pittsburgh Steelers for the most in the league. For his efforts, Gray was named a Pro Bowler and a first-team All-Pro. However, if there was one player in particular that was the most paramount to the success of the Cards, and if there was one player that was the most irreplaceable, if you want to call it that, it was the man that you've been watching this whole time, none other than running back Terry Metcalf. The Cards had the 7th highest scoring offense in football and had the 6th most rushing yards, 7th most rushing touchdowns, and 3rd most yards per carry. And the play of Metcalf was a huge reason why. In 1974, Metcalf, in his 2nd season in the league, played lights out, recording over 1,000 yards from scrimmage and finishing second in the MVP voting, only behind Oakland Raiders quarterback Ken Stabler, and finishing third in Offensive Player of the Year voting, only behind Stabler and Denver Broncos fullback Otis Armstrong. And in 1975, not only was Metcalf picking up right where he left off, as he was guiding the Cardinals to one of their best seasons ever, but he was playing even better than he was before. He had a career-high 816 rushing yards, and when you add his 43 catches for 378 yards into the mix, he had 1,194 yards from scrimmage, ranking inside the top 10 in football. Despite having more touches than he did in 1974, he cut his fumbles in half, making a noticeable improvement in that category. He was also a menace on special teams, scoring twice on returns and finishing with 2,462 all-purpose yards, which was the top total in football. And when you combine his 11 touchdowns from scrimmage with a kickoff return and a punt return for a touchdown, he scored 13 touchdowns, which was fifth in the league. Metcalf was named an AP second-team All-Pro, receiving that honor for the first time in his career, and finished third in the voting for both MVP and AP Offensive Player of the Year, falling behind Minnesota Vikings quarterback Fran Tarkenton and Buffalo Bills running back O.J. Simpson in both of those categories. It was another great season for Metcalf, and for the second straight year, he was heading to the Pro Bowl, as he was going to play down in New Orleans at the Superdome alongside all of the other stars in the NFL. In just 3 short years, Metcalf had made it to 2 Pro Bowls, and had established himself as one of the best running backs, and players for that matter, in all of football. But this would be a Pro Bowl trip that he would not forget anytime soon. Oh no, he would not forget this one. Because on January 19th, 1976, one day after Super Bowl X, Metcalf had a flight down to New Orleans to make it to the Pro Bowl. Obviously, he wasn't going to drive down for this game, seeing as the distance between St. Louis and New Orleans is roughly 700 miles, so you're looking at a 10-hour drive, and that just wouldn't be practical or cost-effective. So Metcalf, using Delta Airlines, was going to fly out of Lambert Field, or St. Louis Lambert International Airport as it's more commonly known, and was going to land in New Orleans later that day to begin practicing with his teammates and participating in all of the Pro Bowl festivities. As a side note, this Pro Bowl in particular was fascinating because the players almost boycotted the game, which you can learn more about by clicking the card in the upper right corner. Regardless, every other player to make the Pro Bowl got to New Orleans quickly and safely and hassle-free, as you would probably expect, seeing as 99.9% of people who fly don't pose any issue or threat or anything along those lines. But not Terry Metcalf, not Terry freaking Metcalf. Because Metcalf, knowing that he was going to be in New Orleans for a week, had all of the essentials packed for this trip. He had his clothes, he had his toiletries, he had his personal items, and as any traveler does, he had firecrackers. Yep, firecrackers. As in, explosives. Now, I know that airport security and whatnot was very different back in the mid-70s than it is today, but I'm fairly confident that even back in the mid-70s, when you could just go to the gate without having a ticket, when security checkpoints were more relaxed, and when you could pack more than 3 ounces of liquid and didn't have to take your shoes off, that you couldn't bring firecrackers in your baggage. I'm fairly sure that was illegal. Just a wild guess, but I'm fairly sure that was not allowed, no matter how you want to slice it. This raises the obvious question of why the actual heck Metcalf had firecrackers in his luggage, and why you would possibly bring explosives onto a plane. Maybe he simply forgot he had them. Why you wouldn't just check your baggage beforehand, especially for packing things in said baggage, I don't know. Maybe he was going to pop them in celebration if the NFC won the game. Why you wouldn't just buy firecrackers there, I don't know. He said, I was going to pop them one day, maybe after the game. So he just decided to carry around firecrackers with him at all times, I guess. Just in case he ever felt like celebrating. Because that makes perfect sense. That's how any normal person celebrates. Really, there's no good reason to have firecrackers in your bags when you're going to the airport. But naturally, security stopped Metcalf, because taking explosives on a plane is a big no-no, and I don't think I'm shocking anyone when I say that. Now at this point, Metcalf was kinda screwed, but there are ways you can get out of this by lessening the blow, especially back in the mid-70s. If he said, "Oh crap, I forgot I had these, my apologies," and got rid of them, fine. If he said, "Someone else gave me this bag and I didn't know that these were in it, so just search it and do what you have to do," fine. Again, he's screwed either way, but maybe he gets somewhat of a pass. Instead, we're going to go inside the mind of one of the greatest running backs in the NFL, because now we're going to play the feud. Alright, step on down everyone, right this way, don't be shy, come on down to the podium, here we go. We surveyed 100 people, top 4 answers on the board. Name something you shouldn't say in an airport. I'm gonna blow up the plane! Good answer! Alright, show me blow up the plane! Congratulations! You got it right! Also, congratulations, Terry Metcalf! You're a freaking idiot! Because that's exactly what Metcalf said upon the discovery that he had firecrackers in his baggage. He said that he was going to blow up the plane. Now, this is where there are two sides to the story, because there's a lot of he said, she said that takes place regarding what exactly was said. Either way, it's not good. Harlan C. Phillips, who worked for the FBI, said that when security asked Metcalf how exactly the firecrackers were going to be used, Metcalf responded by saying, quite bluntly, to blow up the plane. The two women who searched the bag, Maggie Saltz and Sherry Pettibon, said that Metcalf asked about why the firecrackers were being investigated. The women said that you can't bring explosives on a plane, and Metcalf asked a question, saying, "Oh, I'm going to blow up an airplane with these firecrackers?" And Metcalf said the same thing, saying that he asked a question rather than what Phillips said, which was blatantly saying that he was going to blow up the plane. Either way, the words, "I'm going to blow up the plane," were uttered. So no matter who was telling the truth, and whether it's Phillips or Metcalf and the other security guards, Metcalf uttered the golden words that will get you arrested at any airport in the country, especially when he refused to identify himself and cooperate, with an airport spokesman saying, "All the problems seem to stem from a lack of cooperation and a rather arrogant attitude with the airport police." Understandably, Metcalf was taken into custody and was arrested, because even if you're joking, you can't make bomb threats, even back in 1975, especially because there was a giant sign as Metcalf was waiting in security saying as much, saying, "Comments regarding weapons, bombs, and hijackings are taken seriously. Please, no jokes," with that part being in all caps. As Metcalf would later say, "I had no intention of blowing up any airplane," which is just what you want to hear out of your star player. Think of what other people are saying on this Monday leading up to the Pro Bowl. It's an honor to be here. I'm grateful that people view me as one of the top players in the league, and I have my teammates and my support system to thank. I had no intention of blowing up any airplane. One of these quotes is very clearly not like the other. But Metcalf was also perplexed as to why these comments caused such an outrage, saying, "I could have understood it if I had a stick of TNT." Metcalf even asked if he should take off his underwear when they were searching his bag and his pockets, saying that he was going to blow up the plane. And even being a football player wasn't getting Metcalf out of this one, seeing as the main security guard to conduct the search, Sherry Pettibon, said, "I didn't know who he was because I'm not a football fan. He's just like anyone else going through here." A Cardinals spokesman commented on the issue. The Cards probably thought having 8 guys at the Pro Bowl was an easy public relations week, as it would be drama-free and incident-free and bring a lot of goodwill toward the team. But nope, this is just how they wanted to spend this week. You think at 11-3 they are playing in the Super Bowl, and instead, the day after, you're trying to put out a fire because your best player made a bomb threat at the airport. Said a Cardinals spokesman, "It would be my guess he was joking. I can't imagine Terry to have said it otherwise." And obviously, I highly doubt that Metcalf was truly intending on blowing up the plane. There is nothing whatsoever to indicate that he was genuinely going to become a terrorist and blow up a plane on the way to the Pro Bowl. But obviously, you cannot make those kinds of statements at an airport, and every statement, whether it's real or a joke, has to be taken seriously. The police eventually let him go, and even though Metcalf missed his first flight to New Orleans, he would make it down there on the next flight, although 6 months after the incident, he would be fined $500 in federal court, or roughly $3,000 in today's money, which is not a ton of money for him considering the fact that he would later leave the NFL to join the Toronto Argonauts of the CFL and would sign a 7-figure contract there. This was just a drop in the bucket. However, despite the incident, Metcalf would make it to New Orleans for the Pro Bowl and would play in the game, helping the NFC win over the AFC by a final score of 23-20. Metcalf played well in the game, much like he did throughout the 1975 season to get him that Pro Bowl nod in the first place, as he finished the game with 41 rushing yards on over 4 yards per carry, while also catching 2 passes for 31 yards and finding the end zone on a receiving touchdown. In total, Metcalf had 72 yards from scrimmage, which was one of the top totals for any player on either side in the game, and he helped guide his conference to a victory in a game that you can learn more about by clicking the card in the upper right corner, because it has maybe the worst Pro Bowler of all time in Mike Barella. And in the build-up to the game, his teammates got wind of his, shall we say, tumultuous journey to get down to New Orleans, as they placed a giant firecracker in his locker as a joke. No word on whether or not Metcalf did anything with the firecracker in celebration after the win, like Metcalf said initially. After that 1975 season, Metcalf would make it to one more Pro Bowl during his NFL career, when he made with the Cardinals in 1977 after posting over 1,100 yards from scrimmage. He did not make any bomb threats on his way to that game, which is always a good sign. Maybe Metcalf could have made a few more Pro Bowls if he didn't spurn the NFL to join the CFL after the 1977 season, although he would have come back from the CFL to join Washington in 1981. Now, even though Metcalf couldn't bring explosives onto a plane, that doesn't mean that you can. Here's my step-by-step guide on how to bring explosives onto a plane. Step 1, Terry Metcalf was obviously a very good player. You don't finish inside the top 3 in voting for MVP and Offensive Player of the Year twice by complete accident. You don't make it to 3 Pro Bowls and establish yourself as maybe, excluding O.J. Simpson, the best and most dynamic running back of the mid-70s by complete accident. But man, as good as he was on the field, that's how stupid he was at airports. Metcalf is pretty lucky that he only got a $500 fine and no jail time from this whole debacle, because it could have been a heck of a lot worse. Because I think it's safe to say that Metcalf's attempt at bringing firecrackers onto a plane, and then making a joke about the situation, if you can even call it that, blew up in his face, and was just plain stupid. Get your official Jaguar Gear 9 merchandise by going to jj9shop.com, and be sure to like and subscribe, as it really helps the channel out a lot. Join me every Wednesday night where we'll play NFL Trivia for cash prizes at 9 p.m. Eastern over on Twitch. To learn more about the history of college football, subscribe to Jaguar Gator 8. To learn more about the history of Major League Baseball, subscribe to Jaguar Gator 7. Also, special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters for helping out the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. See how you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.